What if I told you that the greatest writer who ever lived started as a nobody, forgotten by history for 7 mysterious years, and died believing his legacy would crumble into dust? This is not just the story of William Shakespeare. This is the story of every dreamer who ever dared to believe that words could change the world. Close your eyes and imagine a cold April morning in 1564 in a town so small that most maps didn't bother to name it, Stratford-upon-Avon. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where secrets traveled faster than horses, and where dreams seemed as distant as the stars themselves. In a modest timber house on Henley Street, a woman named Eleanor Hartwell cried out in labor, her husband Thomas pacing frantically outside the door. They were simple people. Thomas crafted leather goods with hands that bore the permanent stains of his trade, while Eleanor came from farmers who had worked the same fields for generations. When their son drew his first breath, they named him William. Little William Hartwell. They held him close, whispering prayers that he would live past his first winter, for in those days death came early and often. They could never have imagined that this squirming infant would one day hold entire kingdoms spellbound with nothing but words. Young William was different from the very beginning. While other children played with sticks and stones, he listened. He absorbed every conversation, every argument, every whispered secret that floated through the narrow streets of Stratford. His eyes, unusually bright for a child, seemed to see things others missed. The way his mother's face changed when she thought no one was watching, the tremor in his father's voice when speaking of money troubles, the way shadows danced on the wall like living creatures telling silent stories. Thomas Hartwell was a proud man, respected in the community for his fine craftsmanship. But pride, as William would later write, often comes before the fall. When William was 7 years old, disaster struck their household like lightning on a clear day. Thomas had borrowed heavily to expand his business, dreaming of becoming more than just a craftsman. But dreams and reality rarely dance to the same melody. His debtors came knocking, and suddenly the Hartwell family found themselves sliding from comfort into something much darker. William watched it all unfold with the intensity of a scholar studying ancient texts. He saw how his father's shoulders bent under invisible weight, how his mother's laughter became forced, how meals grew smaller and silences grew longer. But instead of becoming bitter, something extraordinary happened inside young William's mind. He began to understand that life was a story, sometimes tragic, sometimes beautiful, always unpredictable. Every person he met became a character. Every emotion he witnessed became a scene. Every hardship became material for something greater. At the village school, William devoured books like a starving man devours bread, Latin poetry, ancient Greek tragedies, Roman histories. He consumed them all with an hunger that frightened his teachers. While other boys complained about memorizing verses, William seemed to breathe them into his soul. He would walk home reciting Ovid under his breath, transforming the muddy streets of Stratford into the marble halls of ancient Rome. But books weren't enough. When traveling actors arrived in Stratford, William would abandon everything to watch them perform. He studied every gesture, every inflection, every pause. He noticed how a single word could make a crowd gasp, how silence could be more powerful than shouting, how the right story could make even the hardest heart weep. In those moments, watching actors transform into kings and lovers and madmen, William felt something stir deep within him, a recognition, a calling, a certainty that this was his destiny. The years passed like pages turning in a book William couldn't put down. By 18, he had grown tall and lean, with eyes that seemed to hold secrets and hands that were always moving, always gesturing, as if conducting invisible symphonies. And then, like in every great story, love arrived to complicate everything. Her name was Catherine Whitmore, and she was unlike any woman William had ever encountered. 8 years his senior, she possessed a sharp wit that could cut glass and a laugh that could heal wounds. She ran her father's tavern with the efficiency of a general commanding armies, and when she looked at William, she saw something others had missed, potential burning bright as a forge fire. Their romance, scandalous by the standards of their time, unfolded like a forbidden play performed in shadows. Catherine was already considered an old maid at 26, while William was barely a man. Society whispered and pointed, but William had learned something from all those ancient stories he'd studied. Love doesn't ask permission, and the greatest tales are born from the greatest risks. When Catherine discovered she was carrying his child, the world seemed to tilt on its axis. In those days, pregnancy outside marriage was more than shame. It was social death. Families could be destroyed, reputations ruined forever. But William, who had spent his childhood watching his father crumble under society's judgment, made a different choice. In November 1582, he married Catherine in a quiet ceremony that felt more like a declaration of war against convention than a celebration. 6 months later, their daughter Elena was born, followed 2 years later by twins, Marcus and Isabella. At 21, William found himself responsible for a wife and 3 children, with no clear path to provide for them. His father's business continued to struggle, and William possessed no trade beyond his way with words. He could have followed the expected path, learned leatherworking, accepted a small, quiet life in Stratford. Instead, he made a decision that would either destroy him or transform him into legend. What happened next remains one of history's greatest mysteries. From 1585 to 1592, William Hartwell vanished from all records, as if he had been erased from existence. These became known as the Lost Years, 7 years of silence that historians have puzzled over for centuries. Some say he fled Stratford to escape legal troubles. Others believe he joined traveling actors, learning his craft in the muddy fields and makeshift stages of provincial England. A few romantic souls insist he was recruited by powerful nobles who recognized his genius and educated him in secret. The truth, perhaps, was simpler and more extraordinary than any theory. William spent those years becoming himself. He worked as a tutor for wealthy families, absorbing their secrets and observing their cruelties. He performed with ragtag theater companies, learning that the difference between triumph and disaster could be measured in heartbeats. He wrote constantly, filling notebooks with observations, character sketches, and fragments of poetry that would later bloom into immortal verse. But most importantly, he suffered. He failed. He was rejected, ridiculed, and reduced to sleeping in stables. He learned that genius without opportunity is merely a beautiful form of madness, and that the world breaks everyone eventually. The lucky ones heal stronger in the broken places. When William emerged from those lost years in 1592, he was no longer the uncertain young man who had left Stratford. He arrived in London like a force of nature, armed with nothing but talent, determination, and a heart full of stories that demanded to be told. London in the 1590s was a city of contradictions, magnificent and filthy, cultured and brutal, a place where fortunes could be made overnight and lost just as quickly. The theater district was a gladiatorial arena where playwrights fought for audiences with the desperation of warriors fighting for their lives. William threw himself into this battle with the fury of someone who had nothing left to lose. He began as an actor in minor roles, but his true weapon was his pen. Night after night, by candlelight that burned his eyes and cramped his hand, he wrote. His early plays were commercial entertainments, designed to put coins in his pocket and food on his table. But even in these apprentice works, something extraordinary was emerging. His characters spoke like real people, not like actors reciting lines. His plots twisted and turned with the unpredictability of life itself. Audiences began to notice. Other writers began to worry. Robert Greene, an established playwright drunk on his own reputation, attacked William in print, calling him an upstart crow who dared to compete with his betters. The insult was meant to destroy, but it only fueled William's fire. He had learned long ago that criticism from small minds is often the highest form of praise. Then catastrophe struck London in the form of the plague. Theaters closed, actors scattered, and the city became a tomb. While others despaired, William adapted. Unable to write plays, he turned to poetry, crafting long narrative poems that showcased his mastery of language. Venus and Adonis and The Rape of Lucrece became sensations, making him wealthy and famous beyond his wildest dreams. Even Queen Elizabeth herself reportedly admired his work. When the theaters reopened in 1594, William had transformed from a struggling actor into a literary celebrity. He joined the Lord Chamberlain's Men, one of London's premier acting companies, not just as a playwright but as a shareholder. For the first time in his life, he had security, respect, and the freedom to write the stories that burned in his soul. And what stories they were. Romeo and Juliet captured the beautiful agony of young love. Hamlet explored the darkness that lurks in every human heart. Macbeth revealed how ambition can corrupt even the noblest soul. Each play was a mirror held up to humanity, reflecting truths so profound they made audiences gasp with recognition. By 1599, William and his company had built their own theater, the Globe. Imagine it, a circular wooden amphitheater that could hold 3,000 people, from nobles in silk to groundlings in rags, all united by their hunger for stories. The Globe became William's kingdom, the place where his imagination had absolute dominion. It was here that he premiered his greatest works. King Lear, a devastating meditation on age. Power and the Price of Pride. Othello, exploring how jealousy can poison love itself. The Tempest, his final complete play, a magical tale of forgiveness and new beginnings. Each performance was an event that shaped the very soul of England. Success brought William wealth beyond his childhood dreams. He owned property, invested wisely, and even purchased the second largest house in Stratford, New Place, a mansion that announced to his hometown that the glovemaker's son had conquered the world. But money and fame, he discovered, were poor substitutes for the simple satisfactions he had known in youth. In 1603, Queen Elizabeth died, and her successor, King James I, proved even more supportive of William's work. The Lord Chamberlain's men became the king's men, performing regularly at court and enjoying royal protection. William had achieved everything a writer could dream of: artistic recognition, financial security, and the patronage of the most powerful people in England. But success, like failure, carries its own burdens. The pressures of constant creation, the politics of court life, and the weight of expectations began to wear on William's soul. His later plays grew darker, more complex, filled with questions that had no easy answers. He was exploring the depths of human nature, but the exploration was changing him, aging him, wearing away at his spirit like water wearing away at stone. By 1613, William had written approximately 37 plays and over 150 sonnets. He had changed the English language itself, inventing words and phrases that are still used today. He had created characters who felt more real than most living people. He had built a literary legacy that would outlive empires. And then, exhausted by decades of relentless creativity, he made a decision that shocked London's theater world. He retired. At 49, with his creative powers still at their peak, William returned to Stratford-upon-Avon, to New Place, to the quiet life he had abandoned so many years before. His final years were peaceful, but tinged with melancholy. He tended his gardens, managed his investments, and spent precious time with his daughters. Sometimes, visitors from London would seek him out, hoping to convince him to return to writing. But William's creative fire had burned so brightly for so long that he needed rest, needed silence, needed to simply exist without constantly transforming existence into art. On April 23, 1616, exactly 52 years after his birth, William's extraordinary life came to an end. Some say he died of fever contracted at a celebration with friends. Others believe his body simply couldn't sustain the intensity of his spirit any longer. He was buried in Holy Trinity Church in Stratford, beneath a stone bearing his own words, warning anyone who might disturb his rest. The world mourned the loss of its greatest storyteller, but death, as William had written so many times, is not the end of the story. His plays continued to be performed, his words continued to inspire, his characters continued to live in the hearts of audiences around the world. Over 4 centuries later, his work is performed more often than that of any other playwright in history. Today, in theaters from London to Tokyo, from New York to Mumbai, actors still speak the words William Hartwell wrote by candlelight in rented rooms. Students still memorize his sonnets. Lovers still quote his poetry. His phrases have become part of the English language. To be or not to be. All the world's a stage. What's in a name? These are not just quotes. They are the DNA of human expression. William's story is proof that greatness doesn't require noble birth or inherited wealth. It requires only the courage to believe in your own voice, the persistence to develop your talent, and the wisdom to understand that stories are the bridges that connect one human heart to another. He was born in a small town to ordinary parents, faced financial hardship, made mistakes, experienced failure, and spent 7 years in obscurity. But he never stopped writing. He never stopped believing. He never stopped telling the stories that burned inside him like sacred fire. Your story is waiting to be written. Your voice is waiting to be heard. Your dreams are waiting to be pursued with the same relentless passion that drove a glovemaker's son to become immortal. The world needs your stories, your perspective, your unique way of seeing the magic and tragedy and beauty of being human. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until fear disappears, because it never will. Write your story. Sing your song. Chase your dreams with the fury of someone who knows that life is short and art is long. Share this story if it moved you. Subscribe to this journey we're taking together, because every great tale is better when shared with fellow dreamers who understand that the only real failure is the failure to try. As William himself wrote, "It is not in the stars to hold our destiny, but in ourselves. Your destiny is calling. Answer it."